I can't believe you just said that.
What? It's true.
You are too much. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately. Oh, what's on your mind? About us, our friendship. It's really special. I can't believe you lied to me.
It wasn't a lie.
It was just complicated.
Complicated? That's your excuse?
I can't believe this. What is going on? You look so stressed.
She
It's not
used to
funny.
say,
Look at my hair.
"We're like sisters," and I believed her. For years, she was the person I trusted most, the one who knew my secrets, my fears, and my dreams. We laughed together, cried together, and promised nothing would ever come between us. That's why I never saw it coming. I never imagined that the smile she gave me every day was hiding jealousy, or that the hands clapping for my success were quietly setting a trap behind my back. It started small, the kind of things you brush off without thinking. A strange comment here. A forced laugh there. When something good happened to me, her reactions felt just a little off. If I shared exciting news, she'd nod, but her eyes would darken for a split second. I told myself I was overthinking. After all, this was my best friend. Why would she ever want to hurt me? But jealousy has a way of growing in silence. The more my life moved forward, the more distant she became. She began comparing herself to me even when I never asked for it. I tried to include her in everything, hoping to bring us closer again. What I didn't know was that she was already planning something cruel, something meant to embarrass me, to make me feel small in front of everyone who mattered. The trap was carefully designed. She acted supportive, even excited, encouraging me to step into a situation she knew would draw attention. She whispered words that sounded like advice but were really bait. "Trust me," she said. "This will be good for you." And because I loved her, because I believed in our friendship, I listened. What she didn't realize was that lies are heavy. When you carry them too long, they start to crack. Small details didn't line up. People began asking questions. And the more she tried to control the story, the more obvious it became that something wasn't right. The very plan meant to humiliate me started turning against her, piece by piece. Behind the scenes, tensions rose. Awkward silences replaced our old conversations. Guilt crept into her voice, though she tried to hide it with confidence. I could feel the shift, like standing on the edge of something about to collapse. The moment everyone was waiting for was getting closer, and neither of us could stop it now. She wanted me exposed. She wanted me embarrassed. But fate had other ideas. Because when the truth finally began to surface, it wasn't my name people were whispering, it was hers. And just as the trap snapped shut, the realization hit her face. That's where I'll stop for now. Because what happened next changed everything, and the fallout was something none of us were ready for. After that moment, everything felt different, like the air between us had thickened. I kept replaying the past in my mind, searching for signs I had ignored. Late-night talks that suddenly stopped. Messages she read but didn't reply to. Compliments that sounded more like comparisons. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became that this jealousy hadn't appeared overnight. It had been building quietly, hidden behind years of friendship and shared memories. We met when we were younger, at a time when both of us were unsure of who we were. Back then, we leaned on each other to survive tough days and broken confidence. We promised to grow together. But somewhere along the way, our paths began to change. I started chasing opportunities one once only talked about, while she stayed behind, telling herself she still had time. I never thought my growth would feel like a threat to her. She often reminded me of everything we'd been through, almost like she was afraid I'd forget. "Don't change," she'd say with a half smile. At the time it sounded caring. Now it felt like a warning. When people praised me, she'd joke about how lucky I was. When I struggled, she seemed relieved. I didn't notice then, but those moments were shaping something dark inside her. As the days passed after the near exposure, her behavior shifted again. She became overly nice, checking in constantly, acting like nothing had happened. But there was tension beneath her words, a nervous edge she couldn't hide. It was as if she was trying to fix something before it completely fell apart. Every conversation felt rehearsed, every laugh slightly delayed. Meanwhile, small pieces of the truth kept surfacing around me. Friends asked subtle questions. Someone mentioned a rumor they heard, then quickly changed the subject. I felt like I was walking through a fog where everyone else could see clearly except me. I didn't confront her, not yet. Part of me still hoped I was wrong. Part of me didn't want to believe that the person who knew me best could also betray me. Late at night, I scrolled through old photos of us trying to remember when things went wrong. Was it my success? My confidence? Or was it something deeper, something she'd been hiding even from herself? Jealousy can twist love into resentment, and resentment can make people do things they never thought they were capable of. The trap she set was still there, unfinished, waiting for the right moment to close. And she knew it. I could see it in the way she avoided certain topics, in how her voice lowered when others were around. She was afraid but also stubborn. Pulling back now would mean admitting what she'd done. And so we both kept playing our roles, pretending everything was fine, while the tension grew heavier with each passing day. The truth was circling us, getting closer. One wrong move, one unexpected question, and everything would come out. But no one knew when that moment would happen, or who would be standing in the center when it did. After everything that surfaced, the truth didn't feel clean or complete. Instead of relief, there was a strange heaviness that followed me everywhere. I kept replaying conversations, moments I once trusted, now filled with doubt. The betrayal wasn't just about what had happened publicly, but about how long it had been quietly shaping my reality without me knowing. I began to see the situation from different angles. From her side, I could almost understand how jealousy crept in slowly, disguised as insecurity. She had always lived in my shadow, at least in her own mind. Every achievement of mine felt like proof of her failure. Still, understanding didn't erase the damage. Intentions didn't change the fact that she chose to hurt me instead of facing her feelings honestly. Then there was the hidden influence, the person who stayed in the background, whispering doubts and feeding comparisons. The more I thought about it, the more unsettling it became. This wasn't just a personal betrayal, it was manipulation layered on top of vulnerability. Someone saw weakness and used it as a tool. That realization made me question how many other moments in my life had been nudged by unseen hands. Around me, people reacted differently. Some tried to stay neutral, afraid to take sides. Others distanced themselves completely, uncomfortable with the tension that lingered in every room I entered. A few reached out privately, sharing that they had sensed something was off long before it all came out. Hearing that hurt more than I expected. It meant I wasn't alone in missing the signs. I struggled with my own role in it all. Had I been too trusting? Too open? I wondered if my kindness made me an easy target. At night, these thoughts kept me awake, circling endlessly. The main conflict wasn't just between me and her anymore. It was inside me, between wanting closure and needing to protect myself from further harm. Meanwhile, she remained silent. No messages. No explanations. That silence was loud. It left space for assumptions, regrets, and unfinished thoughts. I didn't know if she was ashamed, angry, or still holding on to her version of the story. Not knowing kept the tension alive, like a wound that hadn't fully healed. The person behind the scenes stayed hidden too. Their presence lingered like a shadow, never fully visible but always felt. I knew they were watching how things unfolded, waiting to see if their influence would truly be exposed. That uncertainty made it hard to trust anyone fully again. Every day felt like walking on unstable ground. The past was no longer solid and the future felt unclear. The truth had cracked open something deeper, and I could sense that more was still buried beneath the surface. Nothing was resolved. The friendships, the lies, the manipulation, all of it hovered in an uneasy balance. And until everything came into the light, the tension refused to fade, reminding me that some conflicts don't end quietly. They wait. The day everything was supposed to happen drew closer, and I could feel it in my chest. Every conversation felt heavier, like we were both counting down to something neither of us wanted to say out loud. She kept pushing the plan forward, reminding me of times, details, little steps I needed to follow. Her voice was calm, but her hands never stopped moving. Tapping, twisting, fidgeting. Fear was leaking through the cracks. I started noticing how carefully she watched me. If I talked to someone new, her eyes followed. If I laughed too loudly, she went quiet. It was like she was trying to control every piece of the story before it escaped her. The trap wasn't just about embarrassing me anymore. It was about protecting herself from being exposed. People around us sensed it too. The room would go silent when we walked in together. Friends exchanged looks they thought I didn't see. One person even pulled me aside and asked if everything was okay between us. I smiled and said yes, but my heart was pounding. Deep down, I knew things were far from okay. The night before the big moment, I barely slept. My phone buzzed with messages from her, checking in, reminding me not to forget anything. Tomorrow is important, she wrote. Just trust me. I stared at those words for a long time. Trust. The same word that had carried our friendship for years now felt sharp and dangerous. When the day arrived, the tension was unbearable. The setting was exactly how she described. Public enough to make an impact, controlled enough for her to feel safe. She stayed close to me, smiling for others, whispering reassurance in my ear. But I could feel her shaking slightly when no one was looking. The confidence she once had was slipping fast. Then small things started to go wrong. Someone asked an unexpected question. Another person mentioned a detail that didn't match her version of events. I watched her freeze for half a second before forcing a laugh. That half second said everything. The trap was starting to shift. I stayed quiet, observing. Every lie she told needed another lie to support it. Her words began to tangle, and the pressure in the room grew thicker. I could see panic rising in her eyes, even as she tried to steer the attention back toward me. This was the moment she had planned for, but not like this. My heart raced. Part of me wanted to stop it, to pull her aside and end the madness. Another part of me needed the truth to come out, no matter how painful it was. The tension was stretched so tight it felt like it could snap at any second. All it would take was one person to ask the right question. One detail to be revealed. One mistake she couldn't cover up. And as everyone turned their attention toward us, I realized we had reached the edge. Whatever happened next would change everything between us forever. Just when I thought the tension couldn't rise any higher, something unexpected happened. Someone I didn't recognize stepped forward and said my name. Calm voice. Confident tone. They weren't part of her plan. I could tell by the way her face drained of color. This wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't scripted. The person claimed they had been contacted days earlier, asked to help, set things up. At first, the words sounded harmless, almost supportive. But then details slipped out. Messages, instructions, half-truths that didn't line up with what she had told everyone else. I felt my stomach tighten. This wasn't just a trap anymore. It was bigger than I imagined. She tried to interrupt, laughing it off, saying there was a misunderstanding. But the room wasn't buying it. Eyes shifted from me to her, then back again. The attention she wanted on me was slowly, painfully turning toward her. I could see her mind racing, trying to fix it, trying to regain control. Then came the second twist. Someone else spoke up. This time it was a mutual friend. They hesitated at first, clearly nervous, but then said they had seen messages too. Screenshots. Conversations that showed how carefully this humiliation had been planned. Not just once but over time. The betrayal cut deeper than I expected. It wasn't a moment of jealousy, it was a pattern. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Sadness. Anger. And still, a part of me couldn't believe it was happening. This was the person who once promised to protect me. Now the truth was stacking up around her, piece by piece, like walls closing in. She stood there, frozen, trying to smile, but it wouldn't hold. Her voice cracked as she spoke, changing her story, blaming stress, misunderstanding, even concern for me. Each excuse only made things worse. The more she talked, the clearer it became that she was drowning in her own lies. And then, just when everyone thought they had seen everything, another detail surfaced. One that raised the stakes even higher. The trap wasn't only meant to embarrass me publicly. It was meant to damage my reputation long after that day. Quietly. Permanently. That realization hit the room like silence after a storm. People whispered. Some looked at me with sympathy. Others looked at her with disbelief. The atmosphere shifted from curiosity to tension, from gossip to something much more serious. This was no longer about drama. It was about trust, betrayal, and consequences. She finally looked at me, not with jealousy this time but with fear. Real fear. The kind that comes when you realize you've gone too far and there's no way back. I held her gaze, my heart pounding, knowing that everything we once were was hanging by a thread. No one knew what would happen next. Would the full truth come out? Would she admit what she'd done, or try one last move to save herself? The room waited. I waited. And right there, in that heavy silence, the story took a turn none of us were ready for. The silence didn't last long. She finally broke down, her voice shaking as she admitted pieces of the truth. Not everything at once, but enough. She confessed that jealousy had taken over, that watching my life move forward made her feel invisible. She said she never meant for things to go this far, that it started as a small lesson, and spiraled out of control. The room stayed quiet, listening, waiting for more. No one interrupted her this time. Then the evidence was laid out clearly. Messages were read. Timelines were explained. The confusion dissolved into clarity. There was no denying it anymore. The trap had been real, carefully planned, and meant to humiliate me in front of everyone. The story she tried to build collapsed completely, and with it, the image she had protected for so long. The truth didn't shout, it stood there, calm and undeniable. I finally spoke. My voice was steady even though my hands were trembling. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I simply told her how deeply the betrayal hurt, how trusting her had cost me peace, sleep, and confidence. I reminded her of the years we shared, the promises we made, and how none of that justified what she did. The words felt heavy but freeing. People around us reacted in different ways. Some stepped back from her. Others looked uncomfortable, realizing how close they'd been to believing a lie. A few offered me quiet support. The situation had reached its breaking point, and there was no more room for pretending. The main conflict was over. The truth had won. She apologized. Fully this time. No excuses. No blaming. Just regret. Whether it was genuine or too late, no one could tell. I accepted the apology for my own peace, not to fix what was broken. Some things don't go back to the way they were, no matter how sorry someone is. It felt like the end. Like closure. But then came the final twist. As people began to leave and the tension slowly eased, I was pulled aside by someone unexpected. The same person who had spoken up first. Quietly, they told me something that made my chest tighten again. The plan hadn't been hers alone. Someone else had encouraged it from the shadows, feeding her insecurity, pushing her jealousy further, staying hidden the entire time. A person I trusted too. Before I could react, they walked away, leaving me standing there with a new question echoing in my mind. I thought the betrayal had ended. I thought the truth was fully out. But now I realized something far more unsettling. The trap had fallen. The story had been exposed. Yet the real puppet master was still out there, watching silently, waiting for their turn. And just like that, I understood. This wasn't really the end. It was only the beginning of a much bigger truth. I didn't confront anyone right away. I needed time to breathe, to let everything settle. The truth about my best friend was painful enough, but knowing someone else had been quietly pulling strings made it heavier. Over the next few days, pieces began to fall into place. Small comments from the past suddenly made sense. Advice that once sounded helpful now felt calculated. The mystery didn't stay hidden for long. It turned out the person behind it all wasn't someone close like family or a best friend, but someone who had always been around, watching, comparing, quietly competing. They had their own insecurities and saw our friendship as an opportunity to create chaos without getting their hands dirty. When confronted, they didn't deny it. They shrugged it off, saying they just nudged things along. That moment made one thing clear. Not everyone who smiles at you wants to see you win. With the full truth finally out, the situation lost its power over me. There were no more rumors to chase, no more lies to untangle. My former best friend stepped away from my life completely. There was no dramatic goodbye, just distance. And honestly, that silence brought peace. Some friendships aren't meant to last forever, especially when jealousy replaces love. I spent time reflecting on everything that happened. I realized how easy it is to ignore red flags when you care deeply about someone. How jealousy can hide behind jokes, support, and shared history. And how trusting the wrong people can teach you the strongest lessons. This experience didn't break me, it sharpened my awareness. What surprised me most was how much stronger I felt afterward. I stopped shrinking myself to make others comfortable. I stopped explaining my success or apologizing for growth. I learned that real friends celebrate your progress, not secretly compete with it. And anyone who tries to humiliate you to feel better about themselves is fighting a battle you didn't start. The story didn't end with revenge or drama. It ended with clarity. I chose to move forward without bitterness, carrying the lesson instead of the pain. Life has a way of exposing the truth when you least expect it, and sometimes the trap meant for you becomes the very thing that frees you. Looking back, I'm grateful the truth came out when it did. It saved me from deeper betrayal and showed me who truly deserved a place in my life. Trust is powerful, but discernment is stronger. So if there's one takeaway from this story, it's this. Pay attention to how people react when you shine. Support is loud, but jealousy is quiet. And when someone sets a trap to bring you down, remember, truth has a way of turning the tables. In the end, I didn't lose a best friend. I lost an illusion. And what I gained was far more valuable: self-respect, peace, and the freedom to move forward without looking back.